Super crappy reviews! Hey everyone, and welcome to another super crappy review. And it took me too long to finish this that it has already been months since this game released. But I really want to talk about it because it's a very special game to me. Since it was the first fighting game that I was able to play online. And yeah, I'm talking about Melty Blood. You might know it as the public bathroom meme. For those who don't know, Melty Blood is a game by French Bread, based on the visual novel Tsukihime. For some reason, there was a bunch of fighting games based on visual novels during this time. I don't know why, but we had Big Bang Beat and Eternal Fighter Zero, etc. But out of all of those, the one which really stood out was Melty Blood. It was a really simple game that looked good and was really novel for its time, since it had a story mode that was just like a visual novel, with plenty of routes that would either take you to a good ending, a bad ending, or something completely absurd. It went on to have various sequels, like Melty Blood React, Cadenza, Actress Again, and Actress Again Current Code. And while they were on Cadenza, this genius created a program that would allow two users to connect to each other and play online. This was magical to me, since being able to play fighting games online wasn't a thing back then. At least not here in the third world. Then later came the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation, which made it more common with games like Soul Calibur 4 and Street Fighter 4. But anyways, eventually the game had its last release in 2011, with Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code. And the series kind of died there. It looked like they had plans for an HD Melty Blood with new sprites, but Tsukihime was eclipsed by the Fate series, which had blown up. So the project died, and French Bread decided to make their own original game called Under Night in Birth. And so the years passed, and we got a pandemic, and then they announced a remake of Tsukihime, and I thought to myself, I hope they make a new Melty Blood. And now I can talk about Melty Blood Type Lumina, which is what this video is about. Melty Blood Type Lumina is a reboot for the series, since the new Tsukihime is also a reboot. Because the author thought there were some problems with the novel. And yeah, there were some problems. But anyways, if you don't know what Tsukihime is about, or this version of Melty Blood, basically what happens is that this kid named Shiki gets into an accident. And then when he wakes up in the hospital, he finds out that he can see all of these lines all over the place. And when he traces them, everything breaks. So he runs out of the hospital like a crazy person, and then the most convenient thing happens. This woman gives him magical glasses that make the lines go away, so he can go back to his normal life. But then he somehow kills the queen of all vampires, and then she dies, but she doesn't really die because she can't die, and she falls in love with him. But he's a student, so he doesn't have time for that. But at school, he also has to deal with his friend who's a ninja nun. And then his stepsister or cousin makes him move in with her, and then her crazy maids. And then a bunch of other vampires show up and he has to fight them, and I don't know what else to say because I only played through the game once and there's a bunch of other routes. So I'm not sure what to say. So if you want to figure out, play through the game, but only if you're an adult. Because I forgot to mention that this is an erotic novel. If you're a minor, then wait a few years or wait for the official remake translation, because they remove all the sex. Now that you know the story, I can tell you how the game works. Melty Blood Type Lumina is a somewhat traditional 2D fighting game, where you can fight 1v1 and there's a bunch of movement options. You can run, backdash, dash in the air, double jump, or a combination of both. You also have three types of attack buttons, A, B, and C, which go from light to heavy and can cancel into each other. You can go light, medium, heavy, or heavy, medium, light. This is called a reverse beat. But you have to be careful not to repeat buttons, because this will activate the auto combo, where you can press the same button over and over and the game will just make a combo, which isn't optimal, but it works for beginners, I guess. It's really annoying though, because any attack button can trigger it. It's not like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, BlazBlue, or King of Fighters 14, where just the light button triggers it. The game also has a fourth button, D, which is the shield button. This is a somewhat controversial mechanic, but we'll talk about that later in the end. And basically what it does is that it creates a shield that absorbs hits. When it absorbs a hit, you can push different buttons for different results. Number 1. If you press A, you will do a launcher, which you can follow up with a jump to do an air combo. Number 2. If you press B, you will appear behind your opponent and do an overhead attack. For those who don't know what an overhead is, it's basically an attack that comes from above and can't be blocked crouching. So an air attack, or sometimes these really specific attacks, they can only be blocked standing. Number 3. If you press B plus C, that's B and C at the same time, you will go through your opponent and land on the other side. This is useful for escaping. All of this sounds great, but it's not 100% safe, because once you activate any of these options, your opponent also has the ability to block them with their own shield. So think of the consequences of your actions. And if you don't want to deal with shields, learn their weaknesses. For example, shields can't stop grabs. Oh yeah, grabs can be done by pressing A plus D, so press A and D at the same time and you'll do a grab. Also, shields that are done standing can't block low attacks, and shields that are done crouching can't block air attacks, but they can block standing attacks, so be careful. Something new that they added in this game are these mechanics called Moon Drive and Moon Skill. They also have their own resource, which is this moon icon on the top. This one. When pressing B plus C, you will activate this state called Moon Drive, where the game will pause for a second and your character will gain an extra jump or air dash. But you have to spend your whole moon. If you don't want to spend all of it, you can spend it on moon skills, unless you don't feel like doing extra damage. And just like the Moon Drive, you activate it with B plus C, but you need to add a directional input, like down, forward, or back. And these work like EX moves, which are stronger versions of your character's special moves. And to finish this segment, we also have the Magic Circuit bar, which was also in previous Melty Blood games. With this bar you can do super moves, arc drives, which use 3 bars, and last arcs, which can only be done after losing a round. Because in this game you gain an extra bar after losing, similar to when you lose a character in King of Fighters. Once you have all 4 bars, you can do a last arc by pressing all of the 4 buttons. Or you can perform it by using a shield after entering the blood heat state, which can be entered by pressing A, B, and C at the same time. Once you enter this state, your character will burst with energy and push your opponent, if they're close. But be careful, because it can be shielded, and you'll be punished with a combo. Another thing that happens when you're in the blood heat state is that your health will regenerate. Well, your gray health. And you can also do arc drives, or last arc drives, if you have the 4 bars. And that's everything related to gameplay. Let's see what else the game has to offer. First, we have single play mode, for those who like solo content. Here we can see all of the character portraits, and when we select one, we can see all of these different modes. First, we have the story mode, which works like an arcade mode, where you fight and get a little bit of your character's backstory. There's also score attack, where you fight to get the high score, like back in the arcades. There's time attack, which is the same, but here you fight for the fastest time, instead of the highest score. Like Flash. Survival mode, where you fight until you lose. Mission mode, which are basically combo trials for your character. And below that we have achievements, which unlock stuff in the gallery, like character art, voice clips, or plates for your profile. And at the end we have memories, which are basically clips from story mode, so you don't have to go through it again. And if you manage to clear all of the character stories, you will unlock Boss Rush mode, where you will get this hilarious story and you get to fight stronger versions of every character. It's horrible, but I really recommend just doing it. Just for the story. It's great, just do it. The game also counts with a training mode, where you can practice freely, learn the game's basic mechanics, and access the combo trials that I mentioned previously. And like with any fighting game, we also have a local versus mode, where you can play with your friends. There's also network mode, where you can play with your friends who are far away. And don't worry folks, we have rollback netcode, which works okay. But it should be working better now, because they patched the game, and I tried it, and it's good. Anyways, another thing we should be thankful for is normal-ass lobbies. Yeah, this looks like an ArcSys lobby, but this is a regular lobby. This is just aesthetic, it's actually like a waiting list. We don't have to walk up to an arcade machine. Another thing the game has, which is interesting but disappointing, is the custom color mode, where you can create up to 3 custom colors for each character, but it's too limited. You can't actually make a color, and you have to select from a list, which is too limited and bad. And it's really sad, because Actress again had an absurd amount of colors. And I wanted to make the brilliant detective Sakaido, but they won't let me. Please watch It Invaded. It's good. And we have the gallery, where you can watch the opening, which gives me a copyright strike, a lot of art pieces like character portraits, concept art, story mode endings, and the music, which I wish there was more of. And that's everything about Melty Blood Type Lumina. It's a good game, but it can be somewhat frustrating for people who come from the older games. The auto combo can become very annoying, especially to people who have bad execution. Like me, because I tend to double tap everything. Another huge problem is the shield, because it used to work like the parry from Street Fighter 3, but now it's a weird thing. I personally don't like the whole rock paper scissors thing. It reminds me a lot of the reversal edge system from Soul Calibur 6. That mechanic was so poorly received that they had to adjust it. They had to make it blockable, because this thing used to be unblockable and it was the worst. Now you just lose guard gauge. Another thing they had was a way to break it, which isn't really a thing in Lumina, but I would love if there was like shield breaking attacks, because the only thing that can break them is like a grab, but attack would be more fun, I don't know. Sometimes I feel a lot like I'm at a disadvantage whenever I use the shield, because my opponent can just counterattack, so I don't really like that uncertainness. Right now I have a really weird playstyle where I try to attack before my opponent does, because seeing a person block in this game is like the most terrifying thing. But that's just my personal opinion. My last complaint would have to be the music. Melty Blood had a huge selection of music before, but Lumina not so much. And it's weird that the soundtrack isn't as varied. I don't know if it's because the composer Raito saw the game as an experiment before, so he did a lot of crazy stuff, but now that the game came along the visual novel, maybe he thought he had to do something more serious. Like maybe he was like, oh no, I have to make something respectable now. I really miss the old music, which used to have a bunch of samples and weird sound effects, like the Windows XP error. Even though that was probably an accident, but it was still fun to listen to. I really hope that they add more music to the game, because there's very little right now, and most of the time I just listen to Sleepless Lantern. I still recommend this game, though I probably scare some of you off with my complaints. But I do it because this is a franchise that's very near and dear to me, because it brought me back to fighting games right after the death of arcades, and also because it showed me that I could play with people online. A good thing is that they're coming out with more characters and updates in the future. The director Kamone also interacts with people on Twitch, so I hope that the game really improves, so it can come back to its former glory. Thank you for listening to this super crappy review. If you like it, you can support me on Ko-fi, because one of my friends keeps telling me that I don't shield my coffee enough, so if you wanna support me, just throw money there. I'd appreciate it very much. And I'm sorry for taking so long in making a video in English. I had my microphone died and a bunch of other problems, but I'm here. So I'll try to make more content in English, because you guys don't get enough love. Sorry. I'll make some tutorials in English soon, because of reasons. Oh yeah, also like, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Okay, that's everything. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Peace.